Is it just me, or is every studio trying to get into the news nowadays? Rockstar, Larian, now Naughty Dogs. What's going on? If you didn't know, Naughty Dogs is under fire again because they recently mandated that their employees had to work overtime for their new game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. Whoa, that's a lot to say for a game. Anyway, hit the subscribe button and let's get started. Naughty Dog is working on a new game called Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. New IP, big Sony project, early in development, and we already have problems surrounding it. Keep in mind that this game is set to release somewhere in mid-2027, so it's super early in development. And somehow, even at this stage, developers were reportedly put on mandatory overtime to finish an internal demo. And let me tell you, it was not optional. Oh no, it was mandated by the company for many of the devs to work overtime. This wasn't a launch panic. The game isn't coming out soon. This wasn't about day one bugs or last-minute fixes. This was for a demo, an internal demo, something executives look at to decide if the project is on track and worth the money. And to hit that demo deadline, devs were reportedly working extra hours every week for several weeks straight. Some sources say at least 8 extra hours on top of normal schedules. Others say work weeks were hitting around 60 hours. And yes, there was supposedly a cap, which is hilarious because 60 hours is still insane. 60 hours, which is what, like 12 hours a day if you work 5 days a week? At that point, it's just torture, not a job. It's daylight slavery. On top of that, staff were reportedly pulled back into the office full-time during this push, 5 days a week. Instead of the hybrid work the devs were previously following, longer days, commutes, stay late, less flexibility, it reportedly started from October and lasted for roughly 6 to 7 weeks. No, I am not doing the 6-7 meme. And devs had to log their overtime internally, which basically means documenting your own burnout so management can track it. But this was not the first time they did it. Naughty Dog has been through this before. During The Last of Us Part 2, the studio took a ton of heat for extreme crunch. Devs spoke out, articles blew up, and afterward, leadership talked a lot about change, about doing better, about not repeating the same mistakes. Good job preventing it, I guess. And yeah, some reports say this overtime period has ended. Cool, but that doesn't solve the real issue, because if people are already being pushed this hard just to make a demo look good, what happens later when marketing dates are locked, when Sony wants trailers, when delays start costing real money? It's one thing to ask your employees to work overtime during the crucial period when the game is about to be released, but to ask them? No, not even ask them. They mandated it. To mandate overtime before just a demo is insane. So, how did this hit the internet? Short version, Bloomberg dropped the original report, the one that kicked off the whole thing. That's where the line about mandatory overtime to finish an internal demo first showed up. What Bloomberg said was staff were told to bump work hours to finish an internal demo. The push started in late October, people were asked to come back to 5 days in office, and managers asked for at least 8 extra hours a week during the push. Once this story broke, the reaction was immediate and ugly. Not surprised ugly, angry ugly, because a lot of people saw this as Naughty Dog doing the exact same thing they promised they wouldn't do again. And that betrayal angle is what dominated the conversation, not the demo itself. Most coverage didn't even focus on Intergalactic as a game. The game was background noise. The headline was crunch. Again, early crunch, demo crunch, the kind that's hardest to justify. A lot of writers framed it as this is happening way too early for this to be acceptable, and that framing stuck. Online, the response split fast. One side was developers and industry folks saying, yeah, this tracks, sharing their own stories about demos being crunch magnets because executives want something shiny to look at. The other side was players who were just exhausted, not shocked, just tired. Same studio, same promises, same outcome. Reddit threads and Twitter timelines weren't debating whether it happened. That part was largely accepted. The debate was about what it means. Is this just a short-term push, or is this the warning sign that the whole project is already slipping? Because forcing overtime for a demo screams panic, not confidence. I know that in Japan, manga artists face similar crunch times and are often forced to work overtime. It's similar to that, but for a freaking demo is just, it sounds wrong. Let me know in the comments if this is common for any other fields as well. I have never been forced to work overtime. Yeah, if deadlines were rough, the team would help each other out, but there was never any mandated overtime at the company that I work for, at least till now. From a corporate perspective, this is the worst kind of story to leak. For a studio like Naughty Dog that carries Sony's prestige brand on its back and is expected to represent the best version of how large-scale game development should look. The absence of a loud public response is not accidental or careless, because in situations like this, companies are trained to reduce exposure rather than control the narrative, knowing that statements, apologies, or clarifications can easily become liabilities in future labor disputes or internal HR escalations. AAA studios are already panicking. I made a full video here, you can check it out. So even a small news like this can heavily impact the reputation, which in turn makes the studio lose sales. We the gamers had enough of big companies telling us what we should like and what we should expect as the way forward. I love that we gamers speak up for anything that we don't like. And it works. These studios won't go broke if they don't shove us with microtransactions. They just want the numbers going up to infinity, and they think they can do whatever they want, even force people to stay overtime for a fucking demo. This shows us that in these studios, the milestones, the demos, the investor reviews, that's what are the true focus. That's what they want the devs to pour their energy on, and that's why so many games are just shit now. For Sony, the implications stretch beyond this single project, because Naughty Dog functions as a recruiting magnet and cultural reference point, and any damage to that reputation directly affects how easily the company can attract and retain senior developers in an increasingly competitive global market. But the main point, the most devastating part of this situation, will be that the devs won't feel motivated to make the game. They will work to just finish the game and go home. No optimizing the little stutter or making this tiny little bump be a smooth one or things like that, which is truly a shame. Now let's talk about what the demo was all about. What caused all the ruckus in the first place? Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, is Naughty Dog's first brand new IP in a long time, and it is a big creative swing compared to their usual grounded, realistic worlds. This game leans hard into sci-fi, space travel, and themes around belief, power, and identity, which already makes it stand out from The Last of Us and Uncharted. And so does the bald girl, which many people seem to absolutely hate when it was shown, me included. I won't hide the fact that I didn't like seeing the main character not being a muscular, angry dude with shining armor or a pretty girl with good assets. That's what I meant to say. Look, I play games to get away from the reality of this world. I don't want to be pushed into it with realistic characters, okay? Now that being said, I don't hate it to the extent I won't play it. I will play it if it's good. The setting is futuristic and cosmic, with a strong emphasis on religion, heresy, and control, where belief systems seem to shape entire civilizations rather than just individual characters. The tone is serious and heavy, but in a more philosophical way than Naughty Dog's previous work, focusing less on survival and more on ideology and consequence. The internal demo that caused all this drama was not meant for players at all. It existed to show leadership that the core vision works, meaning visuals, tone, basic gameplay flow, and narrative direction all needed to click in a short vertical slice. Meaning it was a show for the higher-ups to impress them and keep making them pay more money with shiny new graphics and cinematic gameplay, rather than what the actual final product will be. It's not a new practice, every studio does it. From what's been hinted, the demo focused on atmosphere and presentation rather than deep systems, showcasing cinematic moments, environmental scale, and how the player fits into this strange universe. Think strong art direction, controlled gameplay moments, and dialogue-heavy scenes meant to define the soul of the project. Casting and presentation clearly matter a lot here. Naughty Dog is once again leaning into performance-driven storytelling, with a major actor attached to the lead role, and a soundtrack that aims to feel grand, mysterious, and slightly unsettling rather than heroic or comforting. With all that shoved into a demo for a game set to release in mid-2027, no wonder they had to work overtime to finish it.